Hi, thanks for joining. So I haven't been doing a lot of videos, or I have videos, but I don't really have that many. I have like maybe 9 or 10 or something videos. But I just wanted to let people know how I'm doing my videos. I'm actually doing them all from my laptop. I'm running a virtual server on the laptop, and I have my host system just running locally as on a group domain or whatever it's called, the standard non-domain account, the non-domain location that when you first install Windows 7. And pretty much I have a virtual server right here, and this virtual server is acting as a domain controller, IIS server, Exchange server, and it's also running as my SQL server. So pretty much all the magic happens here within this server, and it's running as a virtual server, as I said. And it's actually I'm using a host file to allow for the friendly names to show up when I go into SharePoint. And how I did that was I just created a static IP, and VMware, or for the virtual server, has natting to specific IPs. So what I did was I simply just went into my local computer, and I went to Windows, and then System 32, and then drivers. I'm just going to the host file, and host file eventually, and I just created a static entry to my map to my virtual IP's real IP or static IP, and then I just mapped it to the domain controller, or the DNS, or the domain name for my virtual server. Alright, so that's pretty much how the fully qualified domain, or the friendly name, comes into play when I go into SharePoint. I don't have to use like IPs and whatnot, and I didn't have to join my computer to the domain or anything like that. It's just using a host file. So pretty much what I did first was I installed SharePoint, or Windows Server 2008 R2, and then I set it up as a DNS server. And then once I set up as DNS, or Active Directory server, I got my Active Directory users and creators, and then from there I'm able to create new accounts and whatnot. From there I installed SQL, and then that will allow me to install SharePoint from the SharePoint databases onto, and then I installed Exchange. So the Exchange was for me to allow and use the social components within SharePoint, and allow me to access Outlook and Outlook Web Access, and get all that stuff working. And then of course I installed IIS, and IIS is what hosts the Exchange server, Outlook Web Access component, as well as SharePoint 2010. One of the little tricks that'll happen if you do try to install all this on one server is when you install SharePoint. If you install Exchange first, Exchange by default will install on the default website on port 80. And when you install SharePoint using the configuration wizard, it will as well install on port 80. So what I did was I just went to the bindings within SharePoint 2010, created a host file entry, changed the bindings, thus changing the bindings, and then I restarted the default website which hosts Exchange. And yeah, so that's how I have everything running. There's another issue with hosting or running SharePoint on a domain controller or DNS server. The Outlook Web Access component for some reason doesn't want to work with the DNS, so you have to actually run a specific PowerShell script to get the DNS or domain, to get the Outlook Web Access to work on a DNS server or domain controller. If you want any detailed information on that, just feel free to contact me, and we can definitely I'll help you out or get you up and running real quickly. So pretty much that's the magic. That's how I run my SharePoint from my laptop. It's fairly simple, I think. I like it. It's clean, so I only have just one server running. I close it, run it in the background, and half the time I don't even realize that it's there. And fortunately I have a lot of gigs of RAM, so it doesn't take up too much space or take up too much memory on my computer, and I'm free to do anything I like. I can run at other things, I can do other things, and most importantly I can provide you guys with great videos and concise videos and quick time and a very comfortable manner. And I hope that helps, and yeah, just let me know if anyone has any questions or concerns. Thanks.